adjusting the curtain wall. And what I do is I will head on exactly where I stopped last time. And let me show you. There was one point where I could not show how to correct the curtain wall. Just what happens here. Okay, it works now. And it was the adjustment of the curtain wall. Remember, the curtain wall here, which represents our facade, was set up initially at the design stage. And as we can see here, we are much further now in our model. And so certain changes have to be applied on the curtain wall. First of all, let me switch off the layer of my landscape. Usually I use for that one the quick layers, which are placed down here. And I can say, just select the mesh of the landscape, and I say selections layer should be invisible now, which will speed up the 3D process a lot. Okay. Adjusting the curtain wall, I got stuck last time and I struggled a little bit. When you say edit on 3D, you get grayed out the environment, and you can switch it on and you can switch it off. When you have it switched on, you can use the environment for finding edges and points. And you also can switch on and off the frames and the panels, and at the end you at least should switch on the scheme grid. And a mistake I did last time, because sometimes it's not that easy to talk and to work simultaneously. Have a look here. It shows you first of all the reference line where the curtain wall has been placed. And it doesn't matter this time. And second of all, it shows you the grid scheme. Here's the grid scheme. We could go to the curtain wall settings and change the grid scheme here, but there is no need. Usually we can move the whole grid scheme. We can just touch it and we can move it. Or, as I have showed you last time, we can select one, or we can even select the repeating all grid elements and move them around and change them. And what I tried last time was to change the boundary, and the boundary is being represented by the blue line here. So whenever you want to change the boundary, you can click on it. And that's one thing I would do in 3D, because it's a bit tricky. It's called here the inner polygon of the scheme. But when you want to change it, you can do almost everything what you can do with a boundary. You can add nodes, you can move edges, and whenever you have done that, you have to be aware, and you can round them, or you can okay, let me play a little bit. You can move just one node, and so you are pretty flexible in generating within your grid scheme any of the boundaries. So the secret is just you have to be aware what you are touching. Are you touching one of the grid lines, or are you touching a node of the boundary? And you can see it can get very tricky. Sometimes it's necessary to move around the 3D window just to find the node. But once you have found it, it's easy to change it. And be aware that all changes are, of course, immediately followed by the associated elements in ArchiCAD, which means the boundary frame here is following. And of course, the panels are also following. So let me switch off the frame, because then it's easier to move that back. So, and to remove the node by moving it into a neighborhood node, and work is done. And when I switch on the frames, we can see that the whole has become valid again. Okay, but that leads me to a situation, what we can see here on the corner. Look at that. This is a situation what we do not want to have, of course. What does that mean? The corners always appear, I have the impression, by accident, best guess. So what ArchiCAD thinks that's good for me, it tries to generate. But these corner solutions regularly are not good solutions. And you can see it if I'm moving back, if I'm exiting here the editing mode, and if I'm moving back, especially to the floor plan, then you can see that this works well, let me say, for a concept, but it doesn't work at all. It doesn't work at all if we go further, and Tim will not be happy at all when he wants to generate data out of that rubbish. So any one of you knows, just let me move a copy of the element aside. Whenever you are changing an element like that, you're doing it by setting nodes. And immediately, if you're setting a node, ArchiCAD will react. And it's setting, of course, a boundary frame on this node. And it's getting even worse if you are, let me say, moving the node. And you can see ArchiCAD does best guess, and it moves the boundary frame here on the middle. So this is one thing I would do first. I would generate the form, and then afterwards I would have a look how can we get a clear corner. It's always the corners which are a bit frustrating in ArchiCAD with the curtain wall tool. What can we do? I have prepared, of course, a little situation. The curtain wall settings, it's here. I have drawn a 2D detail just to give you an example where I want to go. It's a curtain wall with boundary frames on the floor, what we can see here with frames in here. It's butt glazed, and it's the corner in this way. I want to go there. And as you see, I already have prepared the solution, and I've prepared two solutions, and I want to lead you through how you can set them up. Just let me again move a copy or drag a copy on here, which we will use for experimenting. What you can see is that on the blue reference line, we have got a few nodes, and a few things are going to happen if I'm moving the node. So within the grid scheme, ArchiCAD will add me, of course, always a boundary, and within the grid scheme, ArchiCAD will add me these frames. Look at that. And the next one is coming. No, bit further. Yeah, it's coming now. So this one is following the grid scheme, but not the corner. And once when I'm touching the corner, let me say I'm adding another node in here. So bang, I'm back to the initial situation. That's what most of us have experienced, that it's once you touch the whole system because you want to change something, ArchiCAD will follow its rules. So this is not very nice. So what can we do? You see, and I show you now how to set up this corner. First of all, you have to go to the edit mode. And in the edit mode, you have got two different systems. The one is projected, the other one is symbolic. I would recommend start with the symbolic one because you see many more elements and you see them very clear. First of all, you can select here the frame in the corner placed by ArchiCAD, and any of us, I think, tried to delete that one. It will not work at all because the rule within the curtain wall says whenever you have a node in your reference line which goes around the corner, there has to be a frame. Let me remove that node one also, so then it's getting even worse. Okay, nice. So what can we do to get rid of that one? As I mentioned, go to the symbolic view, select it, and move it from part placed or generic or whatever you have chosen, and go to invisible. So node has gone. The next step is what can we do with the panels. The panels here is set by default. It has to be a generic one, which is glass. Of course, you know that we have got many more types of panels. We have got a corner panel. Oh, wow, nice. We have got a custom panel, a door, a revolving door, sliding door, and. But I think also any one of us tried out the corner panel. When you set up the corner panel, you end up like this. Okay, you have corner panel 1, and okay, that one was one, and you have got corner panel 2. So you will end up in a situation like this, and I wouldn't say that this is a sympathetic situation because the ends are not right, and if you go to project it, it's obvious that something is completely wrong in here. So let's go back to the symbolic one and let's try what we can do. First of all, these corner panels have a thickness here, and they have general settings where you can influence either the 2D details or so-called 2D detail level and the handling of the corners. The dimensions have to be set up here, and this is a bit confusing. Here is a distance from an axis, here's an angle, and here's a thickness. Okay, first of all, I would recommend go back from the thickness where you want to go, and you see that one works. This is one thing what we can do. And never forget, you always can apply the pickup tool, and you can inject settings to the neighbor. So there's no need most of the time to do the settings 2 times. But you can see, I don't like this situation, I don't like this situation, and I don't like the junction at all up here. So what can we do? Again, let's have a look, not only to the dimensions, but let's have a look in here to the general settings. The secret is down here. It's by default set up to no special edges, but you can have 1 meter where you can define an angle. And a second confusing thing is here. Edge 1 has a direction which is described by an angle. Wow. So that means you have to decide by setting up an angle which edge of the panel you are handling. I can show you, if I go to 0, it's the opposite side. I really don't know why Graphisoft has chosen to define a direction by an angle. But if you do that, it's again easy to pick up the setting of the panel and to inject it here. But by injection, nothing has happened. Have you seen? Because I also never have understood why, by the general settings, it doesn't affect here. So you have to do that manually, and it's a bit trial and error to see if edge one direction is either 0 or 180. Okay, this is one thing what we can do. The second one is by adjusting what I prefer is not the mitted edge, it's the butted edge. And the butted edge has got two offset types. The game with the direction is the same, but the two offset types describe fixed behind or fixed before. Before is obviously on the side of the edge, and behind is of course behind. So getting up a correct setup here is done by one butted edge, and this is one on 0, so that one should be in front. Yeah, and you are getting to this direction. I already have prepared that, and I think Eric can share this setup so you can see how to get with my file and with my example, how to get to a corner situation like this one. And you see already we've got that one here, so I again should choose that one and go back to symbolic. Nice. Anyway, this one works. Sometimes it does not. I don't know why. Okay, as far as we can see, that's a solution what you can have for corner, a proper corner done with the curtain wall tool. And you can see in 3D it absolutely works well. Okay, nice. Second topic, it has to do with the curtain wall tool, because the curtain wall tool, as you know, was the first hierarchical organized tool where we have got a system and a scheme and frames and panels and junctions and accessories. The big news in ArchiCAD 21, of course, have been our stairs. We haven't touched the stairs that much until now. So I thought it's time to show you a proper setup of a stair, what we use here most of the time, and I've prepared it here already. It's a prefab concrete stair, and I would love to go with you through the settings, and afterwards I want to show you how to get a proper rail, even with some detailing. This is a glass rail with it's fixed down here and has got tiny covering on top. This is a typical detail what we are using here. And let's go through the settings, how we can get there. Okay. First of all, I go to the place where we, oh, what happened now? Oh, that's nice. It's a nice surprise, but I know already where it is. Should have been here. As you can see, our walls have got structure, they are concrete or they are already organized. Even our lift has been, the elevator has been organized, and I already have done the whole setup here. So let me go first of all to this section, section 1, because here we can see how we can get a proper setup on the top. Here we go. And we can play around a little bit. That would be a nice detail to get on top, although there are a few things what we should improve. The setup on the left side of the axis, of course, is coming from our slab. And on the right side, this one has been done by the setup with the stair. First of all, if you are setting up a stair, I would say the most important thing is at the beginning setting up on top here the junction of the stair on top, and the home story, and the elevation where it's placed, and the elevation where the stair will end up on top. The second important thing, beside of course the width of the stair, is the setup of the first start. Either you can start with a riser or the thread, and you also can end up with a riser or a thread. So I decided to have at first a riser. This is visible on the tiny sketcher, and I want to end with a thread. During the design process, of course, you can have a fixed going depth. You can say I need 280 mils or 290 mils. Later on, you can decide you have a flexible going depth. Why is it flexible? It's flexible out of one reason. We have got rules. The rules are down here above the classification and properties. And the rules, you've got here 7 possible setups for rules. One is describing the riser height between minimum and a maximum value. You can set them up. There is a going depth between, in this case, 250 mils going up to 350 mils. And there is the old rule, we have learned it, it's 2 risers and 1 going. It's between 600 and 650. There are other countries with other rules. There's are countries where you have got a riser through going ratio, or you have got 1 riser and 1 going, or even a possibility to define a minimum or a maximum of a stair pitch. And beside that, you could define a so-called automated landing length. Okay. You can define this, the minimum distance from the outside of the walking line, which is needed for the calculation of the stair. And you can have the walking line going angled or rounded. So go through the rules and set it up according to the building rules in your country. The second thing, you can, of course, define the baseline, which is nothing else like the reference line of the stair, and the combination of your rules plus the expected height of the stair give you immediately the possibilities what you have got. In our case, we can, with these rules, create these stairs. They vary between 24 risers up to 31 risers, and the riser height varies between 152 up to 196. That's the possibilities calculated immediately by ArchiCAD, because ArchiCAD is using at the floor, at the story height, and according to the story height, it's looking at the setup of the rules and the junction, and then it's calculating. Okay. Beside that, of course, you can decide if you want to have a structure. We had that at the first time. You can even mix up between the landing and the flight. And of course, you could add stringers to the left and to the right, and you could do that again with a landing, and you get even a garden stair where you can place posts with a nice railing. Okay, but that's not the thing I wanted to do. What I wanted to do, I wanted to set up properly a prefab stair. First thing you do is you define the thickness of the stair, and you set up the building material. And of course, you can set up, like here, a uniform setup for flight and landing attributes, which is nice. Okay, once that is done, you should go to the support endings and connections and have a look. There's a little sketch in here, and you've got these gray dots. By clicking on them, you can define the connections and the endings. This is the upper ending or the lower ending. And down here, you see the principal setups, what you could have. Of course, on the lower landing or on the start, the flight start, you can have a vertical cut, a horizontal cut, vertical and horizontal. You can have one with a bearing nib and a vertical connection. I decided to have a vertical connection, and then this little sketch shows up. And tiny, as we are used by the interfaces from Graphisoft, you will find the values. This is dy, and the dy value is down here. And here is the dx2, and the dx2 value is here. If you have a look at my stair, I should go to the second section. To the second section, which is down here. Here you can see those two values. So that means the dy defines here the thickness of anything above the load bearing slab. I go to edit, go to the settings, and you will see the setup is 200. And the dx2 defines the needed width which I need to place this door on the load bearing slab. So that's all what I need to do. And on top, it's pretty much the same. If you have a look here, I did a few. So it should be better now for you. Okay, nice. The setup here is again, if you look here, done in the stair settings. And up here, we have got three. One is DX. It is set up here on 0 because I didn't need it. And there is the DY1, and this one is again the setup above the load bearing slab, and the DX2 is the length here with the 150 mils. So this one is the DX2. Okay. It's a bit, I don't know why they did it in a way like that. You cannot influence anything by drawing. You have to do a setup. So usually what I do is I place myself a few dimensions which are going to be removed later on. It's just as a support. I should set it up to millimeters. Okay, let me get the quick options. It's on plane meter. I go to millimeters. It's much better here. Okay, nice. So that's one thing, how you can set up the start and the end of your stair. But to be honest, the detailing of the end, like we see here, is a bit more complex sometimes. Certain layers are going through and certain layers are going to the other direction. And to be honest, there's just one way I have found to fix that or to correct that. And to do that, I use, and you should not be surprised, I use beams. Because beams are very, very nice elements. A beam I could place. Let me just place the beam up here. Is this the lobby? Okay, we are here. And let me just place the beam. I just take any of them. Okay, I already have prepared one, but you can see. And let me set it up as an example. Okay. What have I done? That's the height, sorry. And 200, okay, I don't mind. I will see it in the section. Here we go. The idea what I have is placing the beam where I need it, stretching the beam a little bit, like here. And now this is 250, so it should be 250 width. Okay, let's move the whole thing to the left. Okay, and I need here 100 mils insulation plastic hard, and then I need 75 mils screed. Okay, so what I can do here is I can say I want to use a complex profile, and I capture that one, and I can set that one, and I can say okay, 100 mils. What did we say? It's the insulation plastic hard. Here we go. And then we have a second one with 75 mils, and that should be screed. Here we go. And we have a setup, and I just apply it, and I could store it also, and then I need it. Not again. So I would say this is one option what you can use to set up nice detailings in, especially when you are using stairs. And also what we will see in the next part when we use rails for stairs. The railing, I think all of you have had the same experience. It looks brilliant, but it seems to be very, very complex to set up a rail. Let me show how I would do it. I have prepared, of course, this stair, what we have got here, and I already have prepared a rail. But let me go through the settings, how to get there. I have prepared two examples. First one is the glass rail, what you have seen. And as a variant, I have created with the same stair, second one, which is, whoopsie, that's the glass one, wrong. And the second one is here. Here we go. That's a common steel rail, what we use here as the variant, what we will use to play around also a little bit. Okay, I would say let's go through the settings to get a glass rail like we have here. The railing tool is divided from the stair tool out of one reason. You can associate a rail when you set up railing and node associativity and not static to almost any element. It can be placed on any element, and it can be not only be placed, it's associative. And the same thing with segments. So you see we have got rails and nodes, and we have got segments, and both of them can be associative or static. There is an offset from the reference line. It's out here because you will see later on we will heavily play around with this value. And there's of course an elevation, and of course there are layouts for the play floor plan symbols, and of course there are overrides. There are all of the values what we can set up. You will find numeric in here, so you can set them up by entering a value, but I would not, because it's getting too much complex. Let's go into the rail settings, and like in the stairs, it's an hierarchical tool. So the whole railing consists settings for segments. We have got top rails, and when you click on it, and you can see green if your setup has one. You've got a handrail, there is none. Otherwise, we would see a green one. There are rails, there's one on the bottom. There are inner posts, there are balusters, or there are panels. And if you don't want to have one of those, you, let me say, the rail we don't need in this case, you can say minus and it's gone. The same with the inner posts, I can say no, I don't need one. And for the balusters, you can say no, I don't need one. But we need a panel. So now let's make plus and let's click on it. So now we have got a top rail and we have got a panel. The only thing what I would do is checking up principally the height. And here in Austria, we have got the regulation, a rail from 0 has to be 1000 mils. You can set it up on 90 degrees, or you can have it slanted. Again, these values, I don't give that much attention. I keep my eye on here, it's 1000 mils above 0. That's all. And then let's go to the setup. In here, it's pretty much the same like in our curtain wall tool. You have got different types of the top rails. There is a rail 21, there's a built-in rail, a piggy rail, or you can draw your own and save them in your complex profiles and you can use them. I use the simple one, the built-in rail, because most of the time it does its job. You've got the preview here, and you can set up according to the chosen rail the dimensions, and I say on top I want to have a rectangle 20 by 20 mils, and that one is, let me say, steel, and the 2D representation can be controlled here, and the 3D representation can be controlled here, and you even can say you can override the whole thing, and let me say I want to have a black rail, so I choose that one. Okay, that's done. Second was panel. Again, like the top rail, you have got different types of panel. So I choose again the simple one, the built-in one. And important is the offset from the segment top. And remember, on the top rail, we have chosen as the dimension 20. So the offset, if you want to have it side by side, should be 10, because it's going off from the axis. And on the bottom, I'm not sure. I place it on 0. Let's have a look later on. The width is 20, so it will fit with the top rail, and the material should be glass. This is style and dimensions. Again, you can choose a different 2D representation and a 3D representation. Okay, work is almost done. No, not yet. Go down here. Here you can control the behavior of your nodes. There are posts, and the posts will appear on any direction change or on any node of your reference line. So if you don't want to have one, you should go here to invisible. This is very important. Otherwise, you always will have posts where you don't want to have. The connections can be controlled here. And to be honest, I set this one on 0. And usually I start with no connection, because then I have a better control on what I will get. And down here, you have the possibility to control whenever there's a direction change from sloped to horizontal. It can be controlled by segment, or it could be controlled by a value here. Okay, and then is in the end, you have to control the end, because the end can be banded with a curve or full return or straight, and you can set it up to 0. This is the most simple thing what we can have. That's nice. So I would say we could start
Andreas?
to place the rail. Yeah.
One quick tip, we see where it says edit settings for top rail. Press down on that because it can get very confusing if you are working on a handrail or something and you're saying, you know, you want a certain connection. You just have to know that there are several settings and it's buried essentially because you don't notice which one it's on, perhaps.
Exactly. This is absolutely right. Thank you, Eric. I forgot to mention that. But as you say, it can be confusing because there are so many setups for the whole thing. Okay, nice. That has to be done properly. Once you have done that, you can start to place a rail on your stair. At the beginning, I tried to do that in one go. I even took the settings on the stair that I want to have automatically a rail on the left, on the right, but it was a bit frustrating. So I found out for me that the best way is to start with a selected stair and to start the rail on nodes which I know. Let me say, okay, sorry about stair, stupid. Okay, I start to draw a part of the rail, and you see the stair is blue, so this rail is going to be associated to the stair, and I end with the first part, and then I can much better control what I'm doing. And what I see, I've placed the rail here, 50 mils from my reference line, and that's principally correct because a glass rail has to be fixed on the bottom, and it's going like that. So what can we do? We have to go further down with the panel. So you can go to the edit, and let's go to the segment again on top and have a look here. It's going from 0 to 1000 mils. But we also could say it's going from minus 150 to 1000. And you see immediately we are getting closer. So that means this glass is going down. You can control that one pretty good. And again, how can we form the detail down here? That's done easy. I already have done that. I've stored myself. Where is it? Oh, it's easy. Let me go down here. It's already here. Here we go. It's this one. It's nothing else like a beam formed as a complex profile. Have a look what I've got here. That's the profile. It is the U form, which will be the place for the glass, and on front I have a steel, which will cover the whole thing. And that's the base for the detailing, what Tim will do in a few minutes. So what you can do now, you can save you parts of those details as a, in this case, as a beam. And I use the beam again beyond my rail. Let's see. Okay, wrong direction. When you draw it, you can see where the steel panel is. It's on front. So I just drag it here. And the only thing is I have to know where I have to place my rail, which is sometimes tricky to find afterwards. And I have to define the distance of the rail. It's far outside, and as I remember, it should be 30. Yep, that's right. So the detail is almost ready. And once you have done this setup, you can head on. And the really interesting question is, let's move, how to work around the corner, which means both of them, the beam here and the rail, have to go around the corner. And that's easy. That's really easy. The beam, we can just draw it from here. I just pick up the settings just to get sure. I remove these nodes in the x-axis 30 mils minus, and I can head on to draw. Wrong direction. So it's done. And if you have a look at it, it's of course wrong. But there's one thing what you can do with the beam. You can click on it and you can change the angle. So that's one thing what you can do. You just adjust it to the desired angle. And the same thing we will do with the rail. So we can start to click on the reference line, and then you will find the pen here. And with the help of the pen, you can, of course, draw your rail along any direction. And we are, okay, I've done a little mistake here. I did start in the wrong thing. But you see, it's really easy to head on and to draw really, at least in detail, LOD 300, your rail. And I said, in the end, I have a third one variant. It's the rail with steel balusters. It has become a standard rail here because it's absolutely on all regulations, and it's not that expensive like the glass rail. So the setup here is again easy. If you have a close look to it, it has got a top rail, it has got a rail on the bottom, it has got inner posts, and it has got balusters. And again, I did choose on the top rail just a simple one, a rectangle one, and I did choose pretty much the same for the inner posts, for the balusters, and of course for the posts. There's just one trap here what you should have a look at. It is ridiculous, but it's the 3D, or not the 3D, it's the 2D representation. and you can find it down here. The 2D representation somehow is not projected, but you can choose the form, and by default it's set on a circle. So that's a bit confusing. If you just make a quick setup, you will end up with a 2D representation on the floor plan, which does not fit. In this case, it works, because as you see, it's rectangular. But on my model, I didn't go that far. Okay, I've done it here, but is there another one? I think so. If we look one below, there should be, yep. I didn't have a look at it, and you end up like this, you know. Although you have got the rail with rectangular balusters, the 2D representation doesn't follow. So let me go back. Here we go. So, and the setup is, to be honest, pretty easy. It's similar to the glass one, with one difference. Instead of a panel, I have balusters, and I have set them up exactly the same like I have done before with the panel. And beside the 2D representation, you will find, of course, the dimensions down here, and the type rectangle or round, you find the building material. And again, this is one trick. I have defined, in this case, an offset. You can see the offset is the reference line is following the end of the landing, and the offset in this case is exactly the thickness of the rail. So when you say 30, it's going even a bit more off. And there is one thing you always should consider to edit. It's the bottom, and I found out not many can say that it's going from 0, but you also can enter here negative values. So if I switch on the environment, you have the classic design that, okay, that was wrong. It should be 7.5. Okay, now this is the construction what we usually use here. And again, after exit, you can choose the one, and instead of adding, just go to the end of the reference line of your rail, click on it, and we are still in the drawing mode. And you can go in, you can say, nice, I want to have the rail going to here, and now it's time to going down, like here. So that's the way, and you can see the setup was pretty good, because this rail is nice and smooth, and you can use it for detailing. I think I am through.
Can you move the bottom of that sloped one down? Or it looks like it's not quite the right angle, and it also might need.
Yeah, probably I've done. Yeah, I was I was away. Sorry, that is typically me. I missed the one. Oh my God. Eric, you are bringing me into troubles.
Ah. You did it earlier. You did a version earlier that that Tim's going to be working with, and is actually.
Yeah. Okay, let's move the node. It should be placed. Come on. Moving away always goes. Ay, delay. Okay, I've lost one node. It doesn't allow me to pick it up. Okay, no worries. In this case, go back and start again.
Yeah, this is the sort of thing that can drive people crazy. And when I was teaching the class, it certainly.
Yeah. Once you have done a mistakes, sometimes it's really better to go away and yeah, much better. So okay.
And then can you drop down the bottom of that one segment further, because it's not.
Yeah. It's not on this one. I want to do that in the section, I think, to be honest.
Because it's important to be able to select a single segment.
Yeah.
Don't mean to make your life hard, but this is what people often come to me and say, you know, I can't get it to work.
Let me do it in the section. It's most of the time better.
So when there is a question from Paul Adams saying, can you put an extension on the end of the rail too?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, you can.
Come on. Yep.
So I think it's important just to show how you could, would the bottom of that go down?
That would be the detail like I would do. I even would, that was the reason why I stopped before. I never would end here, you know. I always would end here. That's detailing I would do. That was the reason. It's not natural for me to end here, because I always keep the last one out. Or you have in England, sometimes you have big posts here. Am I right? But
yeah, sometimes.
That would be the detailing I would do. That would be a nice one for me.
So
okay.
for anyone who wants more extensive training on stairs and railings, I have a separate course on stairs and railings, which you can check out. I found this very interesting because certainly the way you approach some of the modeling with doing one piece and then extending it, I had never experimented with that. And so that's a nice thing for me to realize is an alternate way to build a railing from one piece first and then additional pieces. But if anyone wants information on that, just email me, support@bobrow.com. So I guess Tim is up next to take the stair package. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first thing, I've got a bit of a question. My video is still loading, I think. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay. If you make me presenter.
I will just, there's a couple of questions before we move on from John Dunham saying, what if you wanted to have a thicker solid bottom rail below the top level of the treads so that you can't see the end of the tread or concrete?
It's a detail, you see. I should have placed a note here. So I did here the mistake. This is it would work, but I should have started to go down here. It's detailing. Or you can even say that in this segment here, you can say, okay, you edit it and you have, oh, go away. Here with the segments.
And Eric Zerung says, will you cover stair landing nosing detail? I believe Tim is going to be doing that.
Yeah.
Oh,
but
thanks
you
a
can.
yeah, but I was going to carry on a bit with stairs. You're right to do that, to say. Right.
Okay, so you can change all you can change the segments, and so that's another way to detail. But it's getting it's getting really complex. So here we go. But again, it was my mistake. The banding shouldn't be here on front. It should be here. So I should change that one also. But it will change here down. That one. Okay. Okay, that's more or less the idea. Okay, then that one has to go down parallel. We could play hours and hours now. Hmm, 50 was wrong. Okay, I should not calculate.
Well, anyway, you're showing obviously that these things can be modified piece by piece, and it does take some time to get it right. And of course, sometimes, as you said, it's better to sort of start over. In other words, figure out what should have been done, and then just draw it again fresh, and that or remove certain parts of the railing and then start that part over. So. And you did have a version that you did earlier that I guess is probably a little bit cleaner, and Tim's going to be working with that in his copy of the file. Oh, there we go. That's looking more like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a geometrical problem. You have to find exactly the point where you go over, and it's that one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, you're figuring it out ahead of time so that when it's being fabricated, it fits.
It fits, yeah.
Perfect. All right. So we'll make Tim the presenter, and we'll move on to the next section. Any other follow-up questions, please just type them in, and we'll at least acknowledge them, possibly be able to answer them if we have time. All right.
Okay, well, I wanted to look at the stair from the point of view of doing a working drawing. And of course, one of the difficulties is that Graphisoft things never quite work for working drawings, and you have to do extra work to them. So if we look at the stair as it actually is now, the first thing we've got is that there is a gap at the moment, as you can see, between the timber tread and the riser and the concrete. And that is okay when you've got something like a junction like this up against a wall. But you do need to think about things from the point of view of saying, well, if we go and look under here, we've got areas like this that we're going to have to think about. And they're a real pain, these kind of things, but they are worth, deciding what you're going to do about it. We also seem to have this gap here, Andreas. I don't know what that is. It's almost as though we actually need to take the slab there. I guess if we take that.
So earlier, maybe you weren't watching Tim. He did put in a beam in exactly that place. It filled in the 3D nicely, but I imagine you could extend the slab over if the priorities were correct.
Yeah, or you could extend the slab over and then use the stair to SEO that. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, handling bits like that are worth doing. The other thing, which is a question really, I don't think that there's a way of actually putting a finish on the underside of these stairs. If we want to put plaster on, because, you know, there are some buildings where you just have exposed concrete, or you'd take the concrete and you would paint it. But if you're doing a high quality building, you're going to want to put a finish on the underside. So, you know, that's something I thought, well, that's probably worth looking at, how we would do that, because these things all tend to then tie up with the detailing that people want. And I think here I've just put, it's not that one, maybe it's that one. Yeah. So I think the first is a question for you, Eric, because you've done more work with the new stair tool than I probably have. Funny enough, I've done a lot of single-story buildings recently. I can't see a way of actually putting a finish on the underside of this. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't think that there's an option. There may be some option if you select that stair to change the surface, which wouldn't be, you know, like a complex profile, or I mean, it wouldn't be like a composite. It would just be a paint, you know, which could make it look like it was plaster. But yeah, so you probably have to model that.
So basically, you take this is actually a roof. You take a bit of roof, you'd make it plaster, you get the angle right, you get the thickness that you want. I put this temporarily on another layer so I could bring it in, and you take that to there. Getting that connection would be quite nice. To there. We can then do a little trick here. We're going to use another piece of roof here, but we're going to make that 0. We'll come back to that junction in a minute. But if we then actually flick those in, you'll see that what you can do is, whoops. Doesn't want to do that for some reason, but these two should actually.
You probably have to get zoom in to get the proper edge, whether it's the top or bottom edge.
Yeah, it's irritating. I think you should, ideally, we should be able to do it with either.
You have to have the other one selected in order to.
If I take that back there, it should join. There we go. So you can put a plaster detail in like that, and of course this horizontal element looks like it's a slab, but the great thing about using a roof with a 0 pitch for ceilings is that you can actually get that junction there. Really neat. So that's,
by the way, just before you go on, Tim, just in case some of the people who were watching didn't quite know how you were connecting it, if you have one single plane roof selected and you command or control click on the edge of another single plane roof, it will move to the meeting point. This was something absolutely necessary and before ArchiCAD 15's multi-plane roofs. And of course, when you're doing single plane structures like this, it's still a very important shortcut to know about. Command or control click on the edge that you want to adjust with the other roof controlling it, the one that you've selected.
Yeah. So that, but it's something I use roofs as ceilings all the time because of the kind of work I do, and that ability to make that junction really quickly is actually really good. And then of course Andreas has done this here, which is a complex profile. And if we have a look at that, what he's got there, you know, he's got some stuff there, which is the, actually I've got to reserve this as well to edit it. But the way you might change the detailing slightly is to say you've got a an element there, which is steel. And we know we've got some plaster, which is 15 mil. So let's actually take that down, say 18 mil, like that, store that. And that will then, and you see there, we've got that. We can then, you know, flick into 3D and we can actually just move that back by, I don't know, 10 mil. So we're sort of starting to get a gap there. And of course, what you could do is you could actually put a bit of, let's do that. We can actually create a detail. I won't go to a huge amount of trouble to do it, but let's say we just actually create something which is a trim. Have I got a trim in here? Just make it for there for the moment, and so we can give ourselves a shadow gap, and we're basically constructing fills to whatever you want. To make sure that's an actual gap, what we need to do is to put in there our high priority airspace, which we've put in there. And what we do when we do that is we take that outline off, so it looks like there's nothing there. And then if we go back, you start to see the beginning of a detail. This here, that's very strange. It's it should be overridden by that. There must be an issue with the building materials, which I won't bother to fix now. But if we do that, and we might just make the make that slightly deeper. So you start to see that you can actually get a detail like that. It's slightly buggered that end, but it doesn't matter for now what we're looking at. And of course, we also need to think, well, we've got this here, we've got a timber tread here, and we need to decide what to do with this. Well, this can actually just be stretched.
Tim?
Sorry, yeah.
All right, can you check the layer of the roof and the layer of that complex profile and make sure they're on the same intersection priority group?
Let's put that on stair. It might be that.
Yeah, because what I found is that if things don't do an, you know, priority intersection. It sometimes because they are not on this layer, the same layer group, and so it is ignoring the collision.
Yeah. I must admit, I resort to SEO a lot with these things because sometimes it's just easier.
All right,
and I think it's because whatever that is there, it's probably it's that material there. Let's make it steel. And that one, you see the way that's obliterating at the moment. You can actually use, if you right click, you get display order, and you can actually send it to the back. And that tightens that up. That whole thing about display order is well worth remembering as well, because that can really make a difference when you're doing details, because you're often using several different fills, and they're all adjoining or whatever. Still hasn't quite worked, has it? Don't know. Anyway, and of course we also sort of sort this out up here, because wasn't one of the questions what do with the landing edge? Is that right, Eric?
That's what you had written down, was the stair nosing edge that you were going to detail that?
Yeah, I think, well, I'm doing the landing edge now,
Okay.
you know, and it's fine. So what we can do is we can actually, again, play around with this that I showed you the other day. So we can think, well, we want to get something that's about that size there. And we might say that we're going to have a little bit of an overhang. And that's going to be flush with the timber. So what we do is we take that, we copy it, get rid of that. So we just copied those two things to the clipboard. We then pick the composite profile. And you can see that, sorry, let's not do that. And you can line it up like that. So you think, yeah, that's actually what I need. And you can move it into the right place and get rid of the section there. And then you can just delete those bits because they were just temporary. I'm still slightly irritated that that isn't working properly, but and that bit there, although that's drawn like a concrete, it probably wouldn't be. That again is probably going to be like a steel thing, and but that one is stainless steel. Let's make that stainless. There we go. And we could differentiate that by saying, let's find stainless steel and reserve it. And we could flick that round. So let's call that 166, and we'll just actually make that a white, like that. So it's a bit more obvious. Those two need to be timber, whether we've got timber framing. Let's call it there. Store the profile, get rid of that. And really what you're doing is you're drawing with fills exactly the same way that you would actually have to draw with lines to do your detailing. But subject to getting some of these, layerings right, it's slightly irritating that, you've got this keeps being overridden by that. And again, you can actually, sometimes it works to bring it to the front. Some of this is actually to do with the way it's aligned. So we've got ourselves a little detail there. Of course, we can attach data to that. So we can describe that. We can attach data to the plaster finish, and we can attach data to the staircase. And we can also attach data here to that glass balustrade. And we'll do that later on. But having got that, that's not that easy for a builder to look at. So let's think, at the moment, we've actually got this on this stair section here. So that is actually part of that. It's got that one. So we've got that there. And so that's at 1 to 50, which is fine for a general arrangement stair drawing, but we need to blow that up so that everybody can see what's involved. And we might want to blow that whole section up there. So the easiest thing to do is you just copy this and call it stair landing detail. Oops.
And just as a note there, to copy that view, you basically dragged it, and while holding down the Control or the Option key to make a new copy, it's not an obvious thing. There isn't something that says copy and paste in terms of creating a new view. But if you drag a view or a layout and hold down the Option or Control key, you'll see a plus sign, and then it'll create a copy of it.
So the next thing I'm going to do is change the scale to 1 to 10, probably about right. I've also going to change here. You see we've got detailed design section, and we've also got detailed design section. We've got section detail. And what that does is it changes the visibility. I don't know whether we've set it up, but that will change the visibility of the layers down here. You see we've actually got, so when we actually look at that section layer combination, you'll see it's got the general arrangement text on. When we switch to that one, it's got the text detail on. So you can control what level of text you put on. And so when we've set that there as the detail in the settings, you'll see that it's the detail one, not section one. And so that's the difference between those two drawings. And we flick that, and you think, well, nothing really has happened there. I think the no, right. So what we do is we zoom in. We get it to that way. We then go back to settings and say get current settings, and that will actually go with that zoom. So now when we flick between the two, it all works neatly. And we don't need to worry about changing the pens at this stage, because although it's useful for us to see the colors here, we can change the pens when we actually place it on a layout. So we've therefore got we've got a plan of our stair like that, and all I've done is I've taken the whole floor plan like that, and I've zoomed in so I get the part that I want, and that's at 150. And we've got 2 sections at 150. And we've got our landing detail. It's also useful to have a 3D. And all I did here is I set this up so that I just got part of the stair. And you'll notice that the pen colors are different. And all I've done there is I've actually used a pen set here, which I set up some time ago, which is called 3D View. And all that does, it converts most of the stuff you use for modeling, which is this end of the pen table, to black and gray. You can create your own. It's just simple enough. And you can also adjust the thicknesses, the pen weights if you want to. But the main thing is that when you open it, you get this very simple, neat black and white. And you then can start to think, well, that's fine in 3D. That gives the builder a bit of an overview. But let's actually take a look again at that landing. And what we can do there is that we can actually take just that bit. So I'm just using this marquee tool, hit F5, and I'm now only getting one bit of it. And I think, well, actually, I've still got, you know, the lift and various other things, and it's not that clear. So let's actually, so if we now just pick the stair and that, and that. Oh, we need, there's a few things aren't turned on, some layers aren't turned on. Let's change to the section. There we go, so we've got that. And also, we haven't got our stair on. Yeah, we should have. Anyway, it gets as close to what we think. And if you then think, well, I only want those, if you hit F5 again, it just actually identifies that bit. And then we can pull a oh dear. This did this earlier, actually, Eric.
You can turn off the cutaway if you.
No, it froze. It's frozen.
Hit escape. Hit escape.
No, I'm trying all the escapes. No, it's completely locked.
Can you switch applications?
No, I can't do anything with this file now.
I mean, can you bring up another application and then come back to it? Sometimes that'll clear it up.
I've got another one here.
Okay, so that it allows you to do that. If you go back to this one, if you quit out of it, or you force quit out of it, then you can open back up the backup. That should only a step or two back.
Yeah, it's very annoying, this though. Sorry, it'll just take a little while because I'm going to have to get rid of that. I'm just looking to see what it's doing. Yeah, I'll have to reload it. Oh, how bloody annoying.
Yeah, let's see. see whether it offers you a chance to
Oh,
restore.
it'll bring it back because I've got the. In fact, a useful little thing to show is that there we go. I've actually got it so that it automatically saves every step, so I never lose anything really. Because you do find now and again that you get crashes. There's not much you can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just a bit annoying because I wanted to actually show just the idea of creating a 3D document of part of the stair. But we'll have to do what we can without using, what I was trying to do is just cut into the stair so I could actually, just define a very small part of it.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll get it in a moment.
Yeah.
So just for a note for all of you watching, in terms of when you do have a crash, which shouldn't be often, but if it happens occasionally. So what Tim did was he force quit on ArchiCAD, and then going back in, it gave the opportunity to open up the file that hadn't been closed properly, and it had the, it was back up to just a step before his last action. So aside from losing a couple of minutes to restart it, not losing any data.
Change that to that so that we get. Okay, so we've got a couple of extraneous bits here that in an ideal world we wouldn't have. But you'll see, effectively we've got what we need to illustrate, and you just alter it so you can get a good view where you can say, you can see that balustrading, you can see the edge detail, you can see that slab, and you can see that element there. And then,
can you just adjust the marquee to get a cleaner thing, and do a single story marquee perhaps?
We can try. We still get the lift is down to be shown in lots of different stories. What we could do, I think, is just actually turn. Is that? What's that on? Concept stair. So let's create a new. Let's actually say we want the stair. Get rid of everything. I've got some stuff on that. There. What's the railing on? No. Let's go back. I'm just going to start. It's difficult to do it on the fly, Eric. Let's ignore those bits up there. We've got this bit here that we need, and we now go to that, which gives us the edge detail as well. So that, I think, that might be quite a useful bit of drawing to show a contractor. So if we now actually go right click and we get a 3D document here, and we'll call it L3 3D1 landing. Let's put caps on. And there we go. We can look at the settings, and we can see that we've got the surface colors are non-shaded, which I think looks best. You can also pick uniform pen color, which turns everything to whatever color you want. We're going to put the vectoral hatching on, and we're going to have transparency on because we've got some glass So there we go. We can then say, let's save that. That's right. 1 to 85, who knows if that's right at all. Let's change that to 1 to 20 for now. And I'm going to change the pen set to the view. And so we've then got something there. People think, yeah, that could be useful as a detail. And one of the great things about 3D documents is that you can actually put data on there. So next week, when we get to the data side of things, we can add all of that. So what we've got is we've got, therefore, plan, 2 sections. We've got our stair landing detail. Come on. The regen on that's a bit slow for some reason. Can't think why.
It was having to turn on different layers, probably.
Yeah. And we've got our landing detail. So if we wanted to actually create, let's create a subset for stair, which the code reference stair is L3. So we're actually there, put that in L3. We're going to put the settings in there so that we're going to we want custom ID for the L3, but then we're actually going to use a standardized thing here. Change that to dash because we use dots, and we might say, well, let's change that to 0. We then say, let's put a new layer in there. So stage EA, call it A3 landscape. So we've got a layout. You can see there, for some reason, the auto text on here isn't turned on. But what we can then do is to say, well, let's actually drag that loading in and see whether it's the right size. Whoa! No, completely the wrong size, but that's quite easy to fix. We go back in here and we say, let's change that to say 1 to 100, see what that's about. Right. It's pretty big. I do find there there's very little correlation between the scale of 3D documents and real life. And I have to go through this stage each time because I want to be able to get text size right. And then we drag that in there. Oops. Bring that right in there. We don't need all of that. We can tighten that up a bit there. And we can put that there. I know there's an overlap, but it doesn't matter. And of course, then you can also bring that section there in. I think here what we might do, is let's make that an A1. So you can arrange these things with them got one of the sections in there. Okay, so we can fine tune that. We can finesse positioning all we like, but you get the idea. And we are going to take that one there. which is the 1.5. And then we might also think, well, let's next session I'll show you how to actually add all the data into this and notate this and automate it so that it all is very consistent. But the one thing you might want to do is to say, let's actually put some kind of brochure about the balustrade on here as well. So we can hit this, I've got it here, place external drawing. And on my desktop here, I've got balustrade detail, which is a PDF. It's just illustrative. You know, so we're starting to get a useful multimedia layout that describes what's what. We haven't got any notes on there yet, but we can come back to that. Now, of course, some of these don't want scales on. That being at 1 to 200 is a bit of a nonsense. Two things you need to do about that. One is that you can take the scale out down here. We just untick that. But the other thing you want to do is to look here at this checkbox, which says include scale in auto text and indexes. You don't want that because you don't want that showing up as a strange number in there. And the same with this one. In fact, we can probably just copy paste that. Sorry, doesn't. We do the same thing. We take that out of auto texting because there's not anything to scale, and take that off there. So what we've now done, I think, yeah, there's something strange going on with this title block, but what that will have done is made sure that where we've got 1 to 50, you know, 1 to 10, 1 to 50, those will be picked up by the text block, but that and that won't. So that starts to get us something that's useful for a stair. I also wanted to look at another idea, which is how you actually would bring a Hotlinked file in to give a detail like this. So this time we're going to set something up as a new subset, which is going to be called bathrooms. And that is N13. Again, we'll change that so we get consistency, and change that to that. And let's actually put a layout in, and we'll just say ensuite type A. We'll make it A1 to go to space. And we're going to think about populating it. So what I've done is I've actually also got this bathroom. This is actually one of the Hotlinked files. So if we actually look at this, sorry. What I've done is changed this element, but this is actually what's called a nested hotlink. So there's actually a hotlink for the whole of this story, and then this bath is nested within that. And for some reason, I don't know whether you know what the reason is, Eric, but it isn't showing the shower tray. I think there's something in front of it. There's some masking or something. Anyway, we don't need to worry that. But the idea is that we've got a hotlink which is there, and of course that hotlink is then repeated there there, and across all of these, so it's all the same. And so I've gone in and I've edited that. And first thing I've done is created myself a little shower plan at 1:20. I also said, well, let's look at it in 3D. So I created a 3D, and you can see that what I've done is I've created a simple casing, which is tiled. There's a tiled upstand. We've then got a boxing here, which is a wall. This shower unit here is the standard 21 unit, which I'm struggling to find. There. So that's the standard 21 unit, and the glass screen forms part of that, but it is optional, so you could put another glass screen in if you wanted a different design. And I've turned off various things like handrails and the shower and everything because I want to put that in separately. This is then a standard 21 object shower, and this is a wall niche. These are quite useful. Actually, there's two levels, because actually there's in fact a piece of walling which is just the tiling, and behind that there's another wall which is actually the plasterboard framing, and within that is this useful little thing here, which I'll just reserve. Which is a wall niche, and you can make it whatever depth you need. You can actually make it the full depth of the wall, but you can also say, I want the sides and the back to be tiled as well, and that then gives you that idea of a recess in the tiling. And if we go back to the shower plan, you'll see there's your wall niche, and you can adjust the depth of it if I unfreeze it. This hole here in the tiling is just an empty window hole. So you've got...
Why did you make the tile separate from the backing composite?
I want to be able to measure the tile quantity and specify the tiles separately.
I see, okay.
And because it's a relatively small, fairly easy thing to do, I can do that. I do actually make some of the finishes on walls separate on some projects. We do that a lot where we're actually doing external insulation onto an existing building. You have to draw two walls, and you end up with lots of empty openings to put in as well. It's a bit of a pain, but there are techniques to speed it up. So we've got that. I then created a 3D document from that, and you can start to see a little teaser here of what we can do with our text. This is all just auto text labeling here. So we're already telling the contractor, you know, wall tiling, shower mixer, tiled recess, various other bits of information, and we could add the same thing over here as well. And what we've also got is the start to get the data. So here we've got the ID, which actually is really the specification code. I often put a little 3D axonometric in. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not. Depends on the job. You need to make a judgment there. It would be lovely to have a preview picture on all elements, but at the moment you can only put a preview picture on an object. And at the moment all I've got here is the drawing note. I haven't added in the description and the additional notes and all sorts of other stuff, which we'll do next time. But if we go back to here as well, you see I've got this little one here. This is actually internal elevations that I've set up there. And you can see that the elevation lines, one of them is set there so that you get the elevation relatively straightforward of that whole one there. There's another one here which I've set this side of the basin, so when you're looking there you see the side of the basin, and this one I've set outside the shower. And of course you can actually add extra internal elevations if you want to, so you could put another one on the inside. But what that means is then we actually have 3 elevations. I didn't bother to do the other door. So we've got a pretty complete set of data there. You know, I've got 6 drawings and a data thing. So what we could then do is start to bring that into our thing here. There we go. Oh, my brain's gone. Yes, I want to get those in now, Eric, from the other file. I have to hotlink them in, don't I?
No, you would use the organizer and choose that you browse teamwork project.
Ah, right.
So with the organizer, while Tim figures this out, you can you have a double wide panel, and on the left side you can switch what you're looking at to being another running project or another project that's just on your hard drive or server or the teamwork. So you can basically say, I'd like to get a view or even a layout, I believe, from another project. Yeah. And it is something like a hotlink, only it is a 2D view. I mean, it's basically just representational. You can't make any changes. That comes from the external source. And so it's a way to integrate multiple files into a single layout book, for example.
So what we've now got then is I found here under the project chooser, I went to browse teamwork project. I picked the teamwork project, which is the nested bathroom, and are all of the saved views. So one of the reasons you save views, it's very powerful. You shouldn't underestimate saving views. Some people don't do it, but you know, you've really got to organize it all the time because you can grab these. And actually we can really quite simply just drop all of those on there. And we work out how we place them when they're there. So now thinking about that. Oh, it's doing all these updates now. If we go back to while it's doing that, oh no, it won't let me. Oh, there we go. So, in a sense, that there. No, it's not. It's grabbed the whole. It's grabbed the whole of the processor power to do that. And there, you've got all of the various things. Actually, that one we don't want. We can get rid of that one. That one we do want. Just do it roughly so you get the idea. And there we've got internal wall elevations. And we can then say, well, as well as that, we're going to tell the contractor that we want this kind of shower, which is a file I created earlier, which actually came from one of the manufacturer's websites. And again, we need to make sure that we do this one and this one and this one that we don't want. Oh, the scale's off there. Sorry, and we don't want it to repeat. I think that might be because that's preset to do it. Anyway, the principle's there. So there we actually are starting to get a coordinated work package for a particular bathroom, where you can see we've started to get the text there. It relates here to what is actually going to become later on with the extra data, our specification. And you're starting then to see the benefit of all the 3D modeling you do, because every single part of this, apart from that image there, is all live. So if this is changed on plan, then the internal elevations all update. This 3D document all updates. If you change the data, this updates. So you're getting consistency then of, the drawing, your plans, your sections, your elevations, your 3D, and your data right across the whole system. And of course, that does mean you have to wait sometimes while it regens, because it's looking at all that different stuff. So there you go, Eric. I think that sort of illustrates those things. There.
Yeah, well done. There was one question just about technically about the little, I guess the niche, and that was, well, two questions. One, someone was saying, where do you find this niche tool? And it is a window, so it is an opening in the wall. There, is an empty opening, and then there's a niche as an opening that has a backing. It doesn't go necessarily all the way through. And the one question separate from that is just, was there a slab at the bottom of that opening to make the tile at the bottom? Because you had it showing the back and the sides, but in order to show the tile at the bottom of it, is that a separate little slab?
No, the niche works that way. And I must admit, the niche is quite hard to find. I use it quite a lot. But of course, if you put in here, niche, it finds it. Mm-hmm. And so that one there, and you can see that it has actually got it's got four sides and a back. And if we actually look at the depth, you can adjust. The surfaces, you can actually have the wall side surface and tick that. The niche itself, we could change that to, I don't know, royal blue. And I'm not quite sure, I've never actually put one of these in a curved wall, so I'm not sure what that does. But if we untick that, it's to do with picking up the wall of the surface of the wall you're placing it into.
Right, and right now this is not placed into anything, so it can't show you the.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
It's late, but in this case, may I help out?
Yes.
Please. Yes.
Okay, because I found the niche not very elegant, and I was forced to work with niches not only in walls but also in slabs, because if you place in slabs with concrete surface which should be visible, lamps, you have to make niches also in slabs, and that brought me to a solution. If you want me, I can show you immediately how I make that.
Yes, let's go ahead and make you presenter.
Thank you. I didn't expect that late, but it's nice. So I found out that that niches are nice, they are done, and as Tim mentioned, it's hard to find them, but have a look what you can do. If you have, let me say, as an example, a structural concrete slab like here, and we need to put niches into this slab, it's usually not easy to place them. So we started to think at the office how we can make niches very flexible into walls and into slabs. And we found out a technique which is based on the column tool and on the beam tool. So what we did is we started to define a column. You can have any form, as you know. It also can be a complex profile with a very, very free form. And instead of a material, we take our nice element unspecified. And we have an element unspecified with a very high priority. Let me show you. It is like, Tim, you take that one, the high priority airspace, you call it.
Yeah.
I can take that one, I think. Yeah. It is set. Okay. So I apply the airspace, where is it? Set, I think. Airspace high priority, here we go, as the material. And there is one thing what you should do. You should override the model. You should override the model. And there is one material, it's called invisible. Okay, it's not here. We have in an hour. So I take, instead of, I take glass.
How about airspace? Isn't there air? Generic
glass
invisible.
Could be the material.
It's at the top.
Is there
generic
airspace? Okay, so okay. So let me see on top. Yeah, generic invisible. Here we go. So I apply that as a material. Yeah, here we go. And you can use that one. You just place it, and you can set up, of course, also the 2D appearance that you say, nice. I don't want to have a crosshair. I just want to have a slash. And let me say, I want to see it dashed, and so on, and so on, and so on. And the nice thing is with the combination of your column, that means if you move it, I just stretch it, okay, let me stretch it, it starts to make a subtraction. That's it. And it's not visible, you know. So, and that's really easy to create out of a simple column, which has the attributes which are, let me say, negative. So it's easy to get niches everywhere where you want to have them. And the nicest thing is you even can apply them any form what you want, because as we know, it's a complex profile. And I apply, let me say this, and I say apply, and you can create niches which are really hard to make. And as long you can classify them as a niche, and so Tim will get its correct data.
Yeah.
And you can use it also for a wall. And if you use a beam instead, you can apply any form to a wall also. That's it. Last tip for today.
So that's brilliant. The only thing that it's missing for Tim's context is that the side surfaces of what would they be like? Would they inherit the side surface of the wall, for example?
It would, but it would also, if you place a wall underneath, you can have this niche partially also in the wall, you know. it is sometimes when you are constructing, it's really necessary to know that. Let me say if you have a wall here, and let me say you also have an concrete wall somewhere in here. It's very improvised, sorry. I was not expecting to see that. Let's move that below. Here we go. And when I select it, it's, come on. There's my column. Here we go. And when I'm selecting it, come on. It's a column still. How does it work? Select all columns. Okay, that's strange. Dear column.
Maybe you didn't select it for the
Select
3D view.
all columns.
You have a hole, but maybe you didn't select the column in the plan to say show in 3D.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Here we go. Absolutely right. That's a nasty trick. But if you move it downwards, it also will affect walls too. You see?
Yeah.
So that was exactly, that was why we needed it. It was out of a construction.
And so, and if you do the same process with a
It was a
beam,
trick, I know.
if you do the same process with a beam, then you can easily cut a.
You can get any form of a niche in the wall. That's it.
Very cool. Very cool. So, Tim, did if you want to bring up the smart sheet, did the two of you get through everything? That was.
We did. I was thinking that we might look forward to the next time actually before we finish.
So we're if you bring, let me make you presenter again.
Because we're 3 weeks, aren't we, before the next one?
Yeah, so we're going to be skipping the 28th, which would be 2 weeks from today, and running it on April 4th. Andreas, were you able to confirm that that works for you? Okay, good. So it'll be the 4th and then the 18th. And I believe the current plan is that would finish up the course, which is run for whatever.
No, there's another one. No, there's another one after that, Eric. There's 2 more to go.
Well, the 4th and the 18th. Yeah.
Oh yes, the 18th would be the last one.
And then we haven't set a date, but we plan to have a wrap up session. Actually, no, that's right. We were talking about possibly having one that would be a Q&A and for people to submit that. So those of you who are on here at the end of this call, and I will be emailing people to say this, if there's something that we didn't cover, obviously we can't cover everything in ArchiCAD, but if there's something that you'd like us to address, you can submit that or send it in, and we'll sort of look at those gaps and try to create a presentation around that. And we'll probably also do just open Q&A, so you can type in things. So interesting. Just a question. Russell Gray says, can you use the new Surface Painter feature for sides and back of the niche that Andreas made?
I don't know, but it's irritating, for instance, that one of the problems you have with walls is you can't actually have, well, it's not, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so we'd have to test it. It's possible, but we'd have to see.
Just to go through next time, Eric, what we're going to try and do, Andreas is going to show us the Rhino Grasshopper connection. We can only do that as a sort of overview in 30 minutes, but it's pretty good. Andreas has used it quite a lot. I've never used it. We're also hoping that we can look at the idea of how you import Revit families.
Yeah, I actually tracked down that plugin that we've heard about, and it's available for free. So I'm going to play around with it, and I will reach out to Link Ellis, who I believe is the person who created it, or at least made sure it was available. I'm not sure if he coded it or hired out. Link Ellis from BIM6X. So if you do want to work with Revit families directly, that would be the equivalent of library parts. So if you have manufacturer parts that are only available in Revit format, there is an option now. And if you go to BIM6X, so BIM6X.com, and you go to their resources section or their store, it is a free plugin, and they have a frequently asked questions FAQ about it that sort of tries to emphasize, like, this is not intended to move away from IFC and open BIM and things like that, but it does have its, let's say, useful function. And so we'll take a look at that, either just myself, or if I can get Link to participate, that'll be great.
And then the second half of that session will be all about using properties to get the data that you need to create specifications and schedules and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's going to be quite a big thing. I'm hoping to get all of that done in 60 minutes. But the fundamentals about how you actually attach properties to things are that's the most important bit. And then understanding that once you've got that, then you can actually use it in lots of different ways, but you can also use schedules in lots of creative ways to allow easy editing of the data. You don't have to do it all in relation to the three-dimensional element on screen. You can do it off in a schedule, or you can even export it to an Excel spreadsheet and get somebody else to give you some updates, which is would be nice. So yeah, we're going to look at that. So really, we're going to get heavily into data next time, because of course the Rhino Grasshopper connection really is all about data-driven modeling. So that's where we're going to go next time. Okay. So there. Okay, Eric.
Yeah, sounds good. So thank you, Andreas. Thank you, Tim. I think another excellent set of presentations, and we'll be back in 3 weeks. So that'll be April 4th. I'll send an email out to make sure everybody knows. And do give us feedback. Send email to support@bobrow.com, and can answer questions or just accept, your comments and feedback. And then, as we said, we'll try to do one more session. I guess that would probably be around the beginning of May. That'll be of a catch-up. And then I guess we've been talking about this online conference, which wouldn't be a full-day thing like the Masters of ArchiCAD Summit in 2015 and 16, but we might do a 3-hour or some half-day type of thing. So let's we need to just do a little brainstorming about that, and maybe if you have any ideas for things that you'd like to see. This would be related to the advanced best practices concept. In other words, we took this particular project as far as we could, given time constraints and just what it takes to put together a package. And there've certainly been a lot of things I've learned. I believe we've all actually found it an interesting exercise in terms of just thinking through everything. So we'll be trying to come up with some type of a summary with highlights. Maybe I'll even excerpt some videos or something like that. All right. So thanks, Andreas. Thanks, Tim.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, I see. Thanks. Great session from Dennis. And John Dunham says, could you ask Tim to include how to bring in another classification system like Uniformat 2010, as the Uniformat in ArchiCAD 21 is an older one, not the most current version. So that'll be something you can possibly look at in a future one. Yeah. All right. And Eric Zerong says, thank you all. First class session as usual. So first class in this case, meaning better than business class. So, all right. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you in 3 weeks. And I'll talk to you, Tim and Andreas, next week.
Okay. See you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.